They told her she didn't belong in the meeting. They laughed when she walked in. One of them even pointed toward the door and said, "Sweetheart, this meeting is for executives only." What they didn't know is that one day, the same young woman they dismissed would own the entire company. Before we go on, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Buchi Grind, where real stories meet redemption. Because this one will remind you that being underestimated can sometimes be your greatest weapon. It was a cold Tuesday morning in downtown Atlanta. The kind of morning that carried a mix of promise and pressure, when the streets buzzed with people chasing dreams that still felt out of reach. Alicia Brown walked briskly into the tall glass building of Graystone Technologies, her ID badge swinging against her chest. She wasn't anyone special, at least not yet. She was just another mid-level analyst in a company full of people who looked nothing like her, who spoke in clipped tones, and made her feel invisible almost every day. She had joined Graystone 2 years ago, straight out of business school, full of hope. She believed that if she worked hard, kept her head down, and let her work speak for itself, someone would notice. But they didn't. Her manager, Alan Pierce, made sure of that. Alan was the kind of man who smiled only when he was talking to people he wanted something from. When Alicia presented ideas, he'd interrupt her mid-sentence. When she offered suggestions, he'd write them down and later present them as his own in team meetings. Still, Alicia didn't complain. She kept her tone professional, her reports spotless, and her faith alive. That morning, the company was holding a strategic review meeting, the kind where big decisions were made and names were remembered. Alicia had been working on a detailed report for weeks, analyzing market data, projecting growth, and even identifying new opportunities that could take the company ahead of its competition. The numbers were solid. The research was deep. It was her best work yet. When she found out that Alan would be presenting it to the board, she asked him softly, "Sir, would it be okay if I came along to the meeting? Just to support the presentation?" Alan looked up from his desk with that usual half-smirk. "Alicia, those meetings are for executives. You just focus on your data. I'll take it from here." Her heart sank, but she pushed again. "I think it might help if I'm there to answer any technical questions. It's my research after all." He leaned back in his chair, his voice suddenly colder. "You're not understanding me. The board doesn't need the intern energy in there. You'd just be out of place." Out of place. Those words stung more than she expected. She nodded quietly, turned around, and walked back to her desk. But something in her refused to accept it. She had spent nights building that report. She knew those numbers better than anyone. And for once, she didn't want to hide behind someone else's name. So when the meeting started later that morning, Alicia made a decision that would change everything. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding as she stepped into the 12th floor boardroom level. The hallway smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne. The walls were lined with portraits of old white men in suits, founders, past CEOs, all proud and confident. Alicia adjusted her blazer, took a deep breath, and walked toward the glass door with executive boardroom etched in gold. She pushed the door open quietly. Every head turned. There they were, the company's top decision-makers. A dozen men in dark suits. At the head of the table sat Mr. Randall Gray, the aging CEO. Next to him, Alan, already presenting her slides. Alan stopped mid-sentence when he saw her. "Alicia?" His tone was sharp, irritated. "What are you doing here?" The room fell silent. Alicia swallowed. "Good morning, sir. I thought it might be helpful if I..." Before she could finish, one of the directors chuckled. "Is she the new intern?" "Sweetheart, this isn't an orientation." Another voice joined in, "Alan, do we need HR here or something?" Laughter echoed across the table. Alicia's throat tightened, but she stood her ground. "I'm not an intern," she said softly. "I prepared this report." The laughter faded, just a little. Alan forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's okay, Alicia. I'll take it from here." But Alicia wasn't moving. "I just wanted to clarify one of the data points. The Q4 forecast doesn't account for the customer migration trends." "Enough," Alan snapped. "You're not supposed to be in this meeting." Her hands trembled, but she didn't back down. "With all due respect, sir, I deserve to be here." The CEO frowned slightly, glancing between them. "Pierce, is this one of your analysts?" "Yes, sir," Alan said quickly. "A junior. Still learning the ropes." Alicia felt her chest tighten. He was erasing her again. The CEO shrugged. "Then please escort her out. We're losing time." And just like that, Alan grabbed her elbow, not hard, but firm enough to send a message, and whispered, "Don't ever pull something like this again." He led her out of the boardroom as the door closed behind them with a cold click. Outside, Alicia stood frozen in the hallway. Her heart pounded in her chest, her eyes stung, and her throat burned with everything she couldn't say. She had been told, once again, that she didn't belong. That night, she sat in her car in the company parking lot long after everyone had gone home. The street lights flickered. Her laptop bag lay open on the passenger seat, her ID badge catching the glow. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at nothing. And then, she cried. Not the soft kind of crying, but the kind that came from a place deep inside, full of exhaustion and disappointment. "I worked so hard," she whispered through tears. "Why is it never enough?" But then something shifted. As the tears fell, so did her fear. She looked at her reflection in the car window, tired eyes, trembling lips, and said quietly to herself, "Maybe I don't belong there. Maybe I'm meant to build my own table." It was the first time she said those words out loud. And it wouldn't be the last. That night, Alicia made a decision. If Graystone didn't see her value, someone else would. If they thought she didn't belong, she would prove that she did, not by begging for a seat at their table, but by building one so strong they'd have to notice. And that's how her journey began. A journey that would take her from humiliation to ownership. The next morning, Alicia Brown woke up before sunrise. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her heart still heavy from yesterday's humiliation. But inside that pain, something new was forming, something sharp and alive. She sat at her small kitchen table in her one-bedroom apartment, sipping lukewarm coffee as the early light crept through the blinds. Her laptop screen glowed in front of her. She opened a blank document and typed 3 words across the top. "My own company." For the first time in years, she felt awake. She didn't know exactly what she would build or how she would start. All she knew was this: she would never again wait for permission to prove her worth. Alicia's mind replayed every insult, every laugh, every time Alan Pierce had stolen her ideas. She remembered the way he smirked in that boardroom, as if she was nothing more than background noise. Well, she would give him something he couldn't ignore. That day, after work, she stayed up late again, not doing Graystone's reports, but researching everything she could about small business funding, tech consulting, and minority-owned startups. Her idea was simple, but powerful. Graystone was focused only on big corporate clients, ignoring small and mid-sized businesses that needed affordable analytics tools and support. Alicia had spent 2 years inside that system. She knew the gaps better than anyone. She thought, what if I build a company that helps the ones they overlook? So, she started sketching out her plan. She called it DataWave Solutions. A business that would provide data consulting for small businesses that wanted to grow, but couldn't afford million-dollar contracts. Her living room became her office. Her old laptop became her workstation. And her faith became her first investor. Weeks passed. She spent her evenings coding prototypes, creating business plans, and learning about entrepreneurship through YouTube videos and free webinars. On weekends, she went to local business meetups, shy at first, but determined to network. She met other dreamers. Some laughed politely at her idea. But one man didn't. His name was Mr. Peterson. Mr. Charles Peterson was a quiet, older black man in his late 50s, dressed neatly, with kind eyes and the kind of calm that comes from experience. He had been sitting at the back of a startup networking event, listening as young founders pitched their dreams over stale coffee. When Alicia spoke, her voice trembled at first. She talked about small business owners who couldn't afford big firms, about the gap in the market that nobody was paying attention to, and about her dream to change that. When she finished, there was a short silence. Some people clapped politely. Others turned back to their conversations. But Mr. Peterson stayed seated, watching her. When the event ended, he walked up to her. "You've got passion, young lady," he said, smiling. "But passion alone won't pay the bills. Do you have a plan?" Alicia smiled back nervously. "I'm working on it, sir. I just need someone to believe in me." He studied her for a moment and said quietly, "Then start by believing in yourself." He handed her his card. "Call me when your plan is ready. I'd like to see what you're building." That night, Alicia sat at her desk and stared at the card for a long time. Charles Peterson, founder, Peterson Capital Investments. Could this be it? Was this her chance? Over the next few months, Alicia worked harder than ever. She saved every extra dollar she could. She built her first product, a data dashboard that helped small shops track customers and predict sales. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. When she finally reached out to Mr. Peterson, she had something real to show. They met again at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Mr. Peterson listened as she walked him through her presentation, this time, her voice steady and confident. When she finished, he leaned back, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "I like it," he said. "You've done your homework." Her heart skipped. "Really?" He nodded. "But tell me, why does this matter to you?" Alicia looked at him, her eyes firm. "Because I know what it's like to be told I don't belong. I want to build something that gives others a chance to be seen." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled. "That's the right answer." A week later, Alicia got a call. "Miss Brown," Mr. Peterson said over the phone, "Peterson Capital would like to offer you seed funding for your startup. Congratulations." Her hand flew to her mouth as tears welled up. "Oh my God, thank you, sir. I won't waste it." "I know you won't," he said. "Just remember, when the money comes, don't lose the mission." With that funding, DataWave Solutions was born. Alicia registered the company, rented a small shared office, and hired 2 young graduates she met at a networking event, Tasha, a marketing genius, and Caleb, a quiet but brilliant programmer. They worked day and night, building, failing, fixing, and starting again. Alicia was relentless. When doors closed, she knocked again. When clients doubted her, she offered free trials to prove her worth. Slowly, the calls started coming in. A local bakery. A small logistics company. A family-owned bookstore that needed help tracking sales. Each client became a small victory, proof that her dream was working. But success didn't come easy. There were nights she couldn't pay her full team. Days when she doubted herself. And moments when she almost gave up. One evening, when her funds were nearly gone, Alicia sat alone in the office. She whispered a quiet prayer. "God, If this is meant for me, give me a sign. Moments later, her phone buzzed. It was an email. Subject: Partnership Opportunity, Graystone Technologies. Alicia froze. Graystone. The same company that had humiliated her. Her mind raced. She opened the email. They wanted DataWave to collaborate on a community analytics project for small businesses. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was a start. Alicia smiled faintly. Well, she whispered, I guess that's a sign. The following week, Alicia walked into Graystone's lobby, the same building where she had once been escorted out. But this time, she wasn't there as an employee. She was there as a business owner. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? Yes, Alicia said calmly. I'm here to see Mr. Pierce. Tell him Alicia Brown from DataWave Solutions has arrived. Her words carried power now. Moments later, Alan Pierce stepped out of the elevator. His expression froze when he saw her. Alicia, he said slowly. You started a company? She smiled politely. Yes. And apparently, yours wants to partner with mine. He blinked, still processing. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered under his breath. Alicia followed him into the conference room, the same one where she'd been told she didn't belong. But this time, the energy was different. This time, she wasn't there to ask for permission. Alan cleared his throat. So, about this project. Alicia interrupted softly, yes, I've reviewed the proposal. But before we begin, there's a few adjustments I think your team needs to consider. Her tone was confident, measured, the kind that demanded respect. Alan watched her in silence as she spoke, noticing how calm, professional, and commanding she had become. By the time the meeting ended, he knew this wasn't the same Alicia he once dismissed. And deep down, he felt something he'd never felt around her before, intimidation. That night, as Alicia drove home, she smiled quietly. She had come full circle, not yet on top, but no longer at the bottom. She was building something real. And in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning. Because one day soon, she wouldn't just work with Graystone. She would own it. A year later, the name DataWave Solutions had started to mean something in the city. What began as a small idea born from humiliation had now become a growing tech firm with 8 employees, 2 offices, and a client list that was quietly expanding across Atlanta. Everywhere Alicia Brown went, people noticed her confidence. Her old coworkers at Graystone whispered her name like a rumor. But Alicia didn't have time for pride. She was still climbing, still fighting, still learning what it meant to lead. It was a Monday morning when she got the call that changed everything. Her assistant, Tasha, knocked on the glass door of her office. Boss, Graystone just sent a message, she said. They want to renew the partnership, but they also want to discuss something bigger. Alicia looked up from her laptop, surprised. Bigger how? They didn't say. Just that the CEO himself wants to meet you. Alicia's heart beat a little faster. Mr. Randall Gray, the same man who once ordered her out of a meeting, wanted to see her? She leaned back in her chair, processing it. For months, DataWave had been helping Graystone handle data for their smaller clients. It wasn't a major contract, but the success of those projects had made waves. Still, Alicia wasn't sure what to expect. Schedule it, she said calmly, hiding the storm of emotions underneath her voice. The day of the meeting came quickly. Alicia arrived at Graystone headquarters, dressed in a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled neatly into a bun. She looked like power. When she walked into the top-floor boardroom, everyone stood, a subtle sign of respect. Mr. Gray smiled faintly. Miss Brown, it's good to finally meet the woman who's been shaking up our numbers. Alicia smiled. The pleasure is mine, sir. He gestured for her to sit. Alan Pierce sat across the table, looking uneasy. Mr. Gray began, "We've been impressed by your company's work. DataWave has improved client retention by nearly 20%. That's no small feat." "Thank you," Alicia replied. "My team is passionate about results." The CEO nodded. "Which brings us to why you're here. We're considering acquiring your company." The room went silent. Alicia blinked. "Acquiring?" "Yes. We believe your model has great potential. We'd like to bring DataWave under the Graystone umbrella." Alicia sat still, her mind spinning. Part of her wanted to laugh. The same company that once said she didn't belong now wanted to buy her. She took a breath. "Mr. Gray, that's a generous offer. But DataWave isn't just a product. It's a purpose. I built it for people who've been overlooked, like I once was." The CEO's expression softened. "And that's exactly why we need people like you here." Alan Pierce shifted uncomfortably. "It's a fair deal, Alicia. You'd have a senior role. A seat at the table." Alicia turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "I already have a table, Alan. And people who believe they belong at it." The air grew thick. Mr. Gray smiled slightly, admiring her composure. "Well, think it over. My office will send the proposal." When Alicia left the building, she walked through the same lobby where she had once been escorted out. But this time, every step echoed differently. Her phone buzzed. A new message. From Mr. Peterson. Text, "Proud of you. But remember, not all offers are blessings." She smiled faintly. He always had a way of seeing deeper. That night, Alicia reviewed the acquisition offer. Graystone wanted to buy DataWave for $2.8 million, enough to secure her financially for years. It was tempting. She thought about her mother, who still worked double shifts at the hospital. She thought about her sleepless nights and unpaid bills. But she also thought about why she started. She didn't create DataWave to sell it back to the people who once rejected her. Still, she knew she had to think smart, not emotional. So she called Mr. Peterson. They met at the same coffee shop where it all began. Mr. Peterson listened quietly as she explained the offer. When she finished, he folded his hands. "So, what does your heart say?" Alicia sighed. "My heart says no. But my head says maybe." He nodded slowly. "Both are right. But let me tell you something, selling your company isn't always losing it. Sometimes it's strategy." She frowned. "Strategy?" He leaned forward. "You're growing fast, but Graystone has scale. If you play it right, you could merge without surrendering your power. Take their resources. Learn their systems. And when the time comes," he smiled knowingly, "you buy them back." Alicia's eyes widened. "Buy them back?" Mr. Peterson nodded. "Graystone is big, but not invincible. Their board's been divided for years. The right timing could turn the tables in your favor." She leaned back, her mind racing. For the first time, she saw a bigger picture. A future she hadn't even dared to imagine. The next week, Alicia returned to Graystone for the negotiation meeting. Alan was there again, along with a few board members and lawyers. Alicia sat at the head of the table, this time invited, respected, and in control. Mr. Gray began, "So, have you given it some thought?" Alicia smiled. "Yes, I have. I'm open to partnership. But under one condition, DataWave remains an independent entity. I'll agree to a merger, not an acquisition." Alan frowned. "That's not how these things usually work." Alicia met his gaze. Then maybe you should start working differently. Mr. Gray chuckled softly. She's got fire, Alan. Maybe we should take her advice. After hours of negotiation, they reached an agreement. Graystone would invest in DataWave and own a 35% stake, but Alicia would remain the CEO. When the deal was signed, she shook Mr. Gray's hand and said, "Thank you for believing in what I'm building." He smiled. Sometimes, we need new blood to remind us where we came from. Alan didn't say a word. He just sat there, watching, resentment burning behind his polite smile. Months passed. The partnership brought in resources, new clients, and visibility. DataWave grew faster than ever. But not everyone was happy about it. Alan started interfering with her team, sending emails to clients behind her back, making quiet suggestions to the board that DataWave was overreaching. At first, Alicia ignored it. She thought staying focused was better than fighting petty politics. But soon, things got worse. One morning, Tasha stormed into her office. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone leaked our client strategy deck, and it's identical to a new proposal Graystone just submitted." Alicia's heart sank. Who had access? Only their team. Specifically, Alan Pierce. Her blood ran cold. She called a meeting immediately. Alan denied everything, of course, smiling like a snake. "You're accusing me without proof, Alicia. That's not very professional." Alicia clenched her fists under the table. "Then we'll find the proof." And she did. Within a week, her IT specialist discovered email logs showing that Alan had forwarded her company's strategy documents to his personal account, then shared them with Graystone's proposal team. It was corporate theft, plain and simple. Alicia didn't shout. She didn't even threaten. She printed the evidence, placed it neatly in a folder, and walked straight into Mr. Gray's office. He looked up, surprised. "Miss Brown, everything okay?" She set the folder on his desk. "Not really. You should see this." He opened it, scanned the pages, and his expression hardened. "Is this verified?" "Yes," Alicia said. "Your vice president shared confidential information from our partnership." Mr. Gray's voice turned low and sharp. "This is serious." "I know," Alicia replied calmly. "But I don't want revenge. I want justice, and I want out of this contract." He stared at her for a long moment. "You're terminating the deal?" "Yes. DataWave will buy back Graystone's shares, at a fair market value. I'll raise the capital if I have to." The CEO leaned back, studying her with something close to admiration. "You're bold, Miss Brown," he said finally. "But I respect it. Send me the paperwork." By the next quarter, Alan Pierce was quietly removed from Graystone. And Alicia, true to her word, bought back the company's shares, with help from Mr. Peterson's firm. Now, DataWave was 100% independent again, stronger, wiser, and free. As she signed the final documents, she looked at Mr. Peterson and smiled. "You were right," she said. "It wasn't losing. It was strategy." He chuckled softly. "And strategy, my dear, is how kings and queens win wars." That night, Alicia stood by her office window, watching the city lights flicker below. The world that once told her she didn't belong was now making space for her, whether it liked it or not. But she didn't know that her biggest opportunity, and her greatest test, were still to come. Because somewhere in the background, Graystone was falling apart. And soon, Alicia Brown would have the chance to do the impossible. To buy the very company that once threw her out. The news hit like a storm. Graystone Technologies, the very company that once laughed at her, was in crisis. Client accounts were dropping. Internal reports were leaking. Employees whispered about mismanagement. Alicia Brown sat in her office at DataWave Solutions, staring at the headline on her laptop. Graystone faces record losses amid executive scandal. She felt a strange mix of satisfaction and solemnity. This was not just about revenge, it was about justice. And about proving that resilience, intelligence, and vision could outweigh arrogance and prejudice. She picked up the phone. "Mr. Peterson," she said. "It's time." He chuckled softly. "I had a feeling you'd call. You've been planning this day for years." "Yes," Alicia admitted. "Let's make it happen." Over the next few weeks, she worked tirelessly. She arranged investors, lined up loans, and finalized a plan to acquire Graystone Technologies. Every calculation had to be perfect. Every presentation flawless. She knew the boardroom where she had once been told she didn't belong would now become the place where she would claim her victory. Her team, Tasha and Caleb, worked around the clock to prepare for the transition. For the first time, Alicia allowed herself to imagine walking into that boardroom not as an outsider, but as the owner. The acquisition meeting was scheduled on a brisk Thursday morning. Graystone's board members were all present, their faces lined with disbelief and curiosity. Alan Pierce, who had once mocked her relentlessly, sat quietly in the corner. Alicia entered the room with a calm confidence. She was wearing a navy blue power suit, tailored perfectly. Her hair was sleek, her expression composed. The room went silent. "Good morning," Alicia said. "Today, I am here as the majority shareholder of Graystone Technologies." The board members gasped. Alan's face went pale. She placed the signed acquisition documents on the table. "These documents transfer 72% of the company's shares to DataWave Solutions Incorporated, making me the controlling owner." A few of the board members whispered among themselves. Alan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Alicia continued, her voice steady, commanding, "This company once told me I didn't belong. Today, I am not only here to belong, I am here to lead, to rebuild, and to ensure Graystone becomes a place where talent and hard work matter more than appearances." Her eyes scanned the room. Some looked shocked. Others, quietly impressed. Alan looked defeated. "Alicia," Mr. Gray said slowly, "you've truly turned the tables. Congratulations. You've earned this." Alicia nodded. "Thank you. But this is not about personal victory. It's about creating a company that values every voice." From that day forward, Graystone underwent a complete transformation. Alicia implemented transparent leadership programs, hired diverse talent, and restructured the company from the ground up. She instituted mentorship for young women and minority employees, ensuring no one else would feel the invisibility she had endured. The company's profits soared, its reputation improved, and Alicia became a beacon for other ambitious entrepreneurs. One afternoon, as she walked through the newly renovated Graystone office, she passed Alan Pierce. He tried to speak, but she stopped him with a raised hand. "I know you didn't see my value before," she said calmly. "But this company isn't just mine, it's everyone's who works hard and believes in themselves." He nodded silently, finally understanding the cost of underestimating someone. Months later, Alicia sat at a podium at a business conference. The hall was packed with young professionals and entrepreneurs. She looked out over the crowd and said, "A few years ago, I was told I didn't belong. I was laughed at, dismissed, and undervalued. But that taught me something. If they tell you don't belong, it doesn't mean you don't. It means you're destined to build your own space. And when you do, no one can stop you." The audience erupted in applause. Back in her office that evening, Alicia looked out at the Atlanta skyline. The city lights shimmered like 1,000 possibilities. She reflected on her journey, from the girl escorted out of a boardroom to the woman who now owned the company that once rejected her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Peterson. "You've done it. But remember, the real work is just beginning. Lead with vision, always." She smiled. "I will," she whispered. And in that moment, Alicia Brown knew she had done more than reclaim power. She had rewritten her story. From rejection to redemption. From invisibility to undeniable impact. The girl who was once told she didn't belong had not only found her place, she had built an empire where others could belong too. Sometimes, the world will try to push you out of the room. Sometimes, they will laugh at your dreams and tell you that you don't belong. But remember this, your worth isn't defined by their approval. Your strength is defined by how you rise. If Alicia Brown's journey taught us anything, it's that with patience, courage, and vision, you can turn rejection into power, and build your own destiny. Subscribe to Buchi Grind for more true stories of perseverance, justice, and triumph. Share this video if it inspired you, and remember, your time is coming.